Formosa Files is sponsored by the FRANK CHEN Cultural Foundation.
Cijin wasn't always an island. The southern part of it was once connected to Kaohsiung by a land bridge that was destroyed in 1967 to facilitate the construction of a second container port. But long before then, most people preferred getting to Cijin by crossing the Takao Lagoon, which later became the first port of Kaohsiung. As most of the Han immigrants residing in Cijin came from southeastern China, they introduced a boat used back in their hometowns to cross the Takao Lagoon. This type of wooden flat-bottom boat is called a sampan in English, or 舢舨 in Mandarin. Some say the simplest sampan designs were built from just 3 wooden planks, but most of the ones in Cijin were larger and were powered by paddling oars. Hence, people in Cijin named these sampans two-oars, or 舢舨 in Taiwanese. Sampans were so widely used that they made up a huge amount of the traffic near the port. In 1927, Japanese colonial authorities introduced the first modern ferry boat. But as it was operated by a private company, tickets were expensive. Sampans continued to be the vessel of choice for most, and it's believed that by the late 1930s, there were over 100 of them plying the crossing. Just before the end of World War II, the Japanese introduced 3 new ferries for the Kaohsiung public, larger wooden boats. Things were chaotic in the immediate years after 1945, but eventually the new ROC or KMT government repaired the 3 Japanese ferries and put them back into service. In 1955, several ferries with steel hulls began to offer services. It wasn't until 1996, however, that the Shoshan, the first of 3 double-decked ferry boats most Kaohsiung residents are familiar with, began making the roughly 10-minute crossing. Privately owned ferry boats remained popular. Many local residents continued to refer to them as sampans, but the boats that evolved into the primary means of getting from Cijin to Kaohsiung were very different vessels than their old-fashioned ancestors. These large, barge-like boats were powered by motors and could carry 10 or more motorcycles and scooters, plus perhaps some 30 people, and were very convenient to use. You simply rode your scooter across a plank of wood onto the barge, and as soon as it was deemed full, the boat pushed off. And unlike the city ferries, the owners of these boats never rested. Back then, these services were important for Cijin residents, an island that once had few proper medical facilities. Many of these boats, however, were clearly unsafe. Some had no railings, life jackets were rare, and some operators prioritized profits by packing their boats beyond capacity. These sampans turned motorized barges were not illegal. They were registered transportation vessels, although regulations decades ago were not nearly as stringent as they are today. In 2009, the Kaohsiung city government revoked the licenses of the last 23 sampan barges. After more than 100 years, the era of Kaohsiung's privately run ferries, both small and large, had come to a close. The city's first electric ferry, which was also reportedly the first electric ferry in Asia, began its silent operations in 2018. City officials say that when the old ferry boats are retired, their replacements will be powered by electricity,